take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? I'm a human being, God damn it! My life has value! It's time to ask yourself what you believe.
Mass murder, torture, perjury, embezzlement, fraud, deception, treason. These are just a few of your many crimes against humanity. You will not win this war, for you are fighting the very essence of humanity.
Hi, welcome to Truth or Talk. I'm April Bowden.
And I'm Virstyne Henry.
Please visit our website at truthertees.com, our store at shop.truthertees.com. We have Conspiracy Realist t-shirt. And if you buy 3, you can get a free copy of Liam Scheff's book, Official Stories. So please check that out.
Oh, that deal sounds yummy.
It's a great deal, yeah. People, I mean, I think his book is selling for like $15. He's also got a Kindle version, which we don't have on our store, but it's at Amazon, and that's brand new, so if people like to use Kindle, they prefer that to the paper thing. I prefer paper myself. But.
Yeah, me too. I really would. But, I mean, some people do. Like, I tried to get my brother to read his book, and he wanted an electronic version. So now that it's out, my brother's going to get his book. It's more convenient for him because my brother has one of those little tablet notebooks, and he likes to read on that. You know, he doesn't like carrying a lot of books around. But
yeah.
The light bothers me. I can't really... I mean, I'll read on the computer if I have to, and a lot of stuff I have to read, but for the most part, the light really bothers me. I've always been sensitive to, like, TV lights and computer lights and LED lights.
Yeah.
Even though I have to work on it a lot, but I still have to, like, take a break and, like, rub my eyes, literally. And,
I know. Yeah, me too, actually. Because if I have to read in front of the computer after a while, my eyes start to get, like, itchy, and I don't know if it's the frequencies, the heat, the radiation, something coming off of it, but I just don't feel comfortable. Like when I'm reading, I'd like to really kick back, lie down, and I want to have something that I can move very easily. There's something very stiff about the tablets. I don't own a tablet, so maybe I would be okay with the tablet, but I like I like real books, but
yeah, and I like the smell of it and the sound of the pages when you turn them, and you know, you can throw it at somebody if you get mad at them.
You can do that with the tablet too, but then you'll break it. And
that's what I'm saying. You can't really do it with a tablet. You don't want to waste your money, but a book, I mean, you can, you know.
Right, you can throw it at somebody.
Throw it in somebody's head, you know, if they get on your nerves. It's pretty good for that.
Maybe even give them a little bit of a paper cut, you know.
Yeah, those are awful.
Remember, speaking of that, we did a show about hemp a few weeks ago, and we talked about you can make books on hemp paper.
Yes. Oh, my God. You can do so much with hemp. You can do books, clothes. You can substitute dairy because you can make stuff. You can make hemp milk and butter and ice cream and cheese out of the seeds. You know, you can, what else can you do? Rope, oil, oil paints.
Yeah, Ford made a hemp car.
Yeah.
You can even view it on YouTube. He's like, there's just a brief video of he made a car that ran on hemp.
That ran on hemp, and the body was made of other plant fibers and hemp, too.
Wow.
Plant-based. To me, that's the most amazing thing about the car, is that the body was also made out of hemp, and it was way more, I guess, I want to say way more indestructible, or it was harder to dent than actual metal.
Yeah.
And you know, I would imagine it would be hard. Like, have you ever seen those plastic baseball bats?
Yeah.
You can't break them for anything. I remember my brother hit me in the head with one of those one time, and I heard ringing for a couple days. It was awful. Anyway, I digress. But I would imagine, you know, the body would be something similar to that, because there's no way you can break those things.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very durable, and it's very, it doesn't require a lot of, it's very hardy. You know, you can grow it in several different kind of climates and environments, and it doesn't require pesticides because for whatever reason the bugs don't eat them. And so they just kind of hang around. And it's been used medicinally for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so we're going to talk to people today about hemp. We're going to talk to your friend, somebody that you just recently met.
Yeah.
Tell us about her. We're going to take a break, and when we get back, we're going to talk to her. So tell us really quick, who is she? We're going to be talking to?
My coworker. She's an activist and a teacher, and she's actually going to be doing a telethon for hemp. So I don't really know that much about it. I'm going to have her come on and give you guys a little bit more info about it. Yeah, it's great. It ties in with this show because we're going to be talking to Ty Bollinger today, and he's going to be talking about cancer.
Yeah, Ty Bollinger is really, really cool dude, and he wrote a book. He wrote several books actually, but his first book, Cancer: Step Outside the Box, I think is a bestseller. It was really well-regarded book, and he does talk about the use of cannabis oil and hemp in as a cure for cancer. So I'm going to try and bring that into the fray. I know you have to go to work after. Won't be able to stick around when I talk to Ty.
I know, I'm sad.
Yeah. But when I talk to him after we take our breaks, I'll have to try and bring that into the fray. There's so much I want to ask him, though, so I'll get to that as best I can. But we're going to take a short break right now, and then when we get back, we're going to be talking to Virstyne's coworker, Janette, about this telethon she's going to be doing to raise money for hemp, or We'll have to ask her. We don't exactly know.
Yeah. It's like either wellness or it sounds, but it's regarding hemp. So I have to have her, I have to have you on to talk about it to let people know about this.
Perfect. So that'll be really good. So we'll talk to her about that, and then and then we're the next segment after that will be talking to Ty Bollinger. So please stay tuned, and we will be right back. Thanks for listening to Truther Talk.
Everything I'm looking at seems crazy. The newspapers, television, nothing's right. It's telling me it's true. It's like I fell into a bucket of cream and kicked my legs until I became a mouse. What's that about? I'm a conspiracy realist, not a conspiracy theorist. I want a T-shirt that represents me. What? There's one that's available? Go to shop.truthertees.com, says the voice in my head. Shop.truthertees.com. It's not crazy. I'm not afraid to go on the internet and go to shop.truthertees.com. I'm not scared. I take in up bowling balls that look like you. That's what I said. Straighten out. Get your conspiracy realist T-shirt. I'd like to come over there. You look good. You look good.
And we're back. And now we are talking to Janette Perez, a hemp activist and teacher. Hi, Janette. How are you?
Hi, Virstyne. I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. I'm so excited. You're here to talk about hemp, which is great because our show is, our guest today is talking about cancer, and we're going to talk a little bit about hemp. I'm sure I'm
going to try to bring that in, yeah. Because there's multiple cures for cancer, but hemp or cannabis oil, has been used for hundreds and hundreds of years in the treatment of cancer, so that will be hopefully something that we can get to and we can talk about. And are you familiar with that, Janette? Hemp as a source of, and what are some of the other medicinal purposes? Are you familiar?
Well, the cannabis oil is distinct from what we call cannabis hemp. Mm-hmm. And so we are understanding more and more that the cannabinoids in what is found the cannabis indica or cannabis sativa plant have very, very amazing healing properties against cancer. And so more and more research is being done to find out exactly what cannabis and how it affects the body and the healing properties it has on the body. So we're working to deschedule it here in the States, claiming that prohibition is over, so that we can start working with the plant and studying it the way other countries are, like Israel and Spain and Germany and Canada, who are doing a lot of research on this now.
Do you find it insulting that they're saying, we have to study this? Because I think people really, there's been so much research to back up, everything that it can do. So do you think that it's worth it to fight for research or just Or is this something that we still need to research about the plant, or should we just legalize it and get it going, and it can solve our oil problems with with fuel and medicinal purposes. It has medicinal purposes. It would really infuse our economy. We can give people jobs making clothes and I mean all these other great things that hemp can do. It's just
absolutely. And I think that we don't really need more evidence to show us what hemp can do. I think that we do need more research with what the CBDs in the body does technically. I think because people are empowered when they know that groups of people have done this and it's successful. That's what we've built our foundation of modern medicine on. And so I think that creating and having studies for people, the reason we don't do it is because it's illegal. And in most open countries, you can do this just because, like any other thing that people want to study, if it's cannabis hemp, why not? But because the U.S. has been so against it for many years, a lot of countries stopped doing it as well. But that's changing now because the states have been legalizing marijuana, and some states are working to legalize the growth of industrial hemp. And so different players around the world are changing their ideas about how they're going to treat marijuana, especially with travelers that go down to Latin America and Mexico who are cannabis. Some of them are cannabis medical patients, and different countries are asking themselves, well, how are we going to deal with this now that America and the states in America are legalizing the plant? They have to modify their drug war as well. Mm-hmm. So, and so there is change that is being made by states, slowly but surely legalizing the growth of cannabis hemp in its entirety, whether that's the medicinal aspect of the plant or if that's the plant for hemp that we use for food, fuel, fiber, and more. So we're working on both fronts. I mean, many people are only still aware of the medicinal aspects of marijuana, and we're also here to educate them about the hemp and that we can build our houses and our cars and our paints and our canvas. I mean, that was what the original canvas was. It was named after the cannabis plant. Mm-hmm. So to bring back the education and the history that we're so very rich of with this plant, and particularly right now, it was talking about cancer and Fukushima, the radiation that we're being hit with every day for the last 2 years. As of this past Monday, March 11th, which was the 2-year anniversary of Fukushima, what we're asking for also is to phytoremediate Fukushima. That's what they did in Chernobyl. They wanted hemp fields all around Chernobyl to start converting that energy, that cancerous energy that our bodies respond to. Radiation as cancer, our bodies respond to with cancer. We're looking to provide the solutions with what we know. And what we know is based a lot on our research. And so what we have access to being able to do is still very much controlled by our federal government. And we're saying that no, we're helping people educate themselves about states' rights. Again, this is a history that we're very rich of in this country. And so it's really saying, okay, this is what we learned in history, y'all. Now let's actually put it into action with some of the things that are going on in our everyday here in the U.S. and around the world with radiation, with food sources that lack nutritional value. And if we started incorporating hemp seed and hemp seed oil, we would regain balance in our bodies again because it's so high in omega fatty acids and so many wonderful things that the plant carries. The non-THC aspect of the plant. And so it's just important for us, I think, and I think that you guys are doing a great job by educating others about the differences and the versatility of the plant.
Thanks. I was just curious. So you mentioned Chernobyl, that they funded hemp. Like, what did they did something with hemp plants? So did they grow hemp? Did the hemp absorb the radiation, or did people take it to help them heal, or what? What was the deal with that?
They planted it. They planted it around the site, and what they found is that it it converts it. So when the plant absorbs the radiation, it clears the soil as well, and it pulls the radiation out of the air and neutralizes it. So
what?
Yeah, so I mean, why we have the solutions? It grows so quickly, you know. It's like it needs very little attention. That's one of the amazing aspects of the plant as well, because it's naturally it has its own pesticide and herbicide things going on naturally within its composition. So yeah, basically we could be planting it right now.
Yeah.
Well, we could be planting it here in California too, because we're getting hit with a lot of radiation as well.
Right. That's amazing that that the hemp plant absorbs the radiation. I just saw they did a TED talk a while ago talking about mushrooms and how it does the same thing. Mm-hmm. So it's like we have all these problems that we have in our environment. We have the solutions to, but then when you go and do the research and you see all of these petty little things that are like illegal, like hemp. It makes you wonder that somebody has to be in charge. You know, somebody doesn't want this to come to fruition.
Right. Well, then that means that we have to work even harder.
Yeah.
Like if we really want it, we have to work for it, and that's okay. It gives us an opportunity to be in action and actually speak out on what we want. I think so much of what's going on is being imposed upon us as a people, or just because people are not experiencing the impact of things on their body immediately with the GMOs that are being pumped into our processed food market and not labeling GMOs, and they want to put aspartame in the milk, and the people are being impacted on various fronts. So it gives us an opportunity to stand up and choose a front. And so if we really want this, we still can make it happen. But I think the window of opportunity is going to be closing, and then it may be too late if we don't, and then we'll have to see what happens from there if that's the case. But I truly believe that we are in a space where we can empower ourselves and others to create not just change, but transform our system to be the best for a growing community, for the young generations that are inheriting this earth.
Yeah, so you're going to tell us about, so you're going to be a part of a telethon, right? Would you tell us more about that?
Yes, we are doing our second annual, it is not April Fool's, that Hemp Can Save the Planet, Jack Herod Telethon. It's a virtual telethon, actually, and it begins March 31st at high noon, which happens to be Easter. So I'm not sure how that's going to work with all our other Christian comrades in the movement. And see, hopefully we can get church going on the telethon as well, which we may do. And basically what we're doing is we're raising money to give to signature gatherers here in the state of California, so that we can collect enough signatures to put a people's initiative on the ballot to legalize the growth of industrial hemp here in California. So it would be a very hands-off initiative that you can read at cchi2014.org, which is the California Cannabis Hemp Initiative. And there you can go online and read it. It's pretty basic. It's not very daunting. And it's not a very daunting read, and so you can check that out. And there's going to be great prizes as well, or not prizes, but things that you can get in terms of hemp T-shirts, and Chronic Ice is one of our sponsors. They're going to be giving us product that we can actually raffle off or give out upon certain donations, so that we can get this done here in California. And even though we're doing it after Washington and Colorado, I think we can actually do it better. We have the opportunity to look at the legislation more carefully and understand the implications that it has on our larger economy and on our relations, our general relationships, like being able to smoke in front of a child, or being able to smoke and drive a car, not it being considered a felony like in Washington. And so we want to make sure that people are protected and there's no loopholes in there that are actually going to create a greater industrial complex by putting more and more people who partake of the plant in prisons, because so many people are there right now for nonviolent drug offenses with marijuana. So again, these are our sisters, these are our brothers, these are our children, our grandfathers, our grandmothers. These are everyday people that are growing medicine for what it is. It's medicine, and they're being punished.
Right. Yeah, and even if it's recreation, I don't really see the harm in it either, because it doesn't make you a violent person. I mean, alcohol to me, I think it's way more destructive than marijuana or cannabis.
Yeah, well, historically, prohibition is ineffective anyway. So whenever you try to prohibit the people from having, access to alcohol or any other types of drugs, it usually increases violence, increases, more crime, and increases the usage of it, to the excess of addiction and things like that. So we've seen that in our past when we had alcohol prohibition. So it's not surprising that we have all these problems with the so-called war on drugs today. So, again, Janette, thank you so much. We're going to take a short break, and when we get back, I'm going to be talking to Ty Bollinger. Virstyne has to go to work. But before we go, give out the website again where people can go to participate in your telethon.
Yes, you can go to ustream.tv, Hemp Can Save the Planet, and also Blogspot. I'm not sure the exact address, but if you type in Jack Hair Hemp, that will also take you to our Blogspot with information that's ongoing about the telethon.
Okay, and it's on March 31st at what time again?
From high noon to April 1st, high noon, and it's Jack Hair's. It isn't April Fool's that Hemp Can Save the Planet virtual telethon.
Okay, great. And that's Pacific time, right? Since we have
yes, that is.
But anyone can participate. It doesn't matter where you're from. You can still participate in the telethon, right?
Absolutely. This is virtual, so we're reaching out to the world here.
All right, perfect. So thanks for listening to Truth or Talk, and thanks to our guest, Janette, for coming in and telling us about this and about hemp. And as I said, when I get back, I'll be talking to Ty Bollinger from Cancer Truth, and he wrote also the book Cancer Step Outside the Box. So he's going to be on the show after our very short break. Virstyne has to go to work, so I'll say goodbye to both of you ladies, and I'll be reconnected with you later.
All right.
Yes, hello. I wanted to say that I love the conspiracy realist t-shirts that you can get only online at ship.truthortis.com. Mieux, a conspiracy with a C. America is run by the CIA. Yes, the CIA. That's why you have to wear a conspiracy realist t-shirt all the time to let people know that you are not stupid. Go to ship.truthortis.com. Ship.truthortis.com. Ship. Like to go shopping when you buy things at the grocery store. Truthortis.com.
Welcome back to Truth or Talk. On today's show, I'm talking to Ty Bollinger. Ty is a happily married husband and father, a CPA, health freedom advocate, cancer researcher, former competitive bodybuilder, talk radio host, including a weekly spot on Natural News Radio with the Robert Scott Bell Show, and a best-selling author. His book, Cancer Step Outside the Box, and a plethora of other information on cancer, natural health, and more can be found on his website, cancertruth.net. Please welcome to the show, Ty Bollinger. Hi, Ty.
Hey, April. Thanks for having me on today.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I have been following you on Facebook, and your page, the Cancer Truth page, is one of my favorites because you always have such useful information. You post things like almost every day. I just love all your posts there. I share them frequently. I think they're really... Yeah, it's just useful.
I can't take all the credit for that. My wife, Charlene, actually does a lot of the posting on Cancer Truth, but we're a team.
Well, she does a good job then. You guys are a good team because I love it. I love all the stuff that you talk about, and I'll ask you questions about that as we continue. So please tell our audience how you got started investigating the war on cancer and why you started looking into alternatives to chemotherapy and other traditional allopathic.
Yeah, sure. That's a good question to start out with because it seems odd, I guess, that somebody that's a CPA like I am would be involved with cancer research. But it was the year 1996 was when my father, Graham Bollinger, was diagnosed with cancer. He was a seemingly healthy man, 52 years old, and it was July the 1st, 1996. I still remember Charlotte and I were over at Mom and Dad's house eating dinner, and he doubled over in pain. He had been to the doctor a few times before with stomach pains, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. So we took him to the hospital, and they thought it was gallstones. Cut him open, went in to remove the gallstones, and lo and behold, he had stomach cancer. So, of course, the recommendation from the oncologist was to, or from the general surgeon, I guess, who had called the oncologist at that point, was to remove the entire stomach. And at that point, I didn't really know any better. We figured we'd do what the doctor told us was the best course of action. So we followed his advice, and Dad had his entire stomach cut out, and over the course of the next 25 days, he basically bled to death. He had 19 blood transfusions in 25 days, and he died July the 25th. It took him 25 days to kill him, basically, with the surgery. I believe he died from the surgery. So that was when I got thrown headfirst, I guess, for lack of a better term, into researching cancer and cancer treatments, because I didn't understand how a medical system that I thought was so advanced could not keep my dad alive longer than 25 days. And over the course of the next several years after Dad died, I began to do lots of research on cancer treatments and natural treatments for cancer and conventional treatments for cancer and so forth. I ended up losing both grandfathers, a grandmom, cousin, uncle, and finally my mother to cancer. So I lost seven close family members over the course of about 7 years. And it was at that point when Mom died that I realized that all this research that I had been doing on natural treatments and how effective they were compared to the conventional treatments, I needed to put into a book so that people could have that information. And then when they were facing a cancer diagnosis, they could decide for themselves what treatment they wanted to pursue, which I felt was a real a shortcoming at that time. I didn't feel like my family had access to that information, and I wanted to provide that for other people.
Yeah, I can understand that. I have a vaccine injured son. I don't know if you know that about me, but I have, and I had a similar kind of experience where, you know, it took trusting the medical establishment and then saying, oh, well, maybe this isn't, maybe the people who are telling me that these things are harmful actually are right, and these people, these in the white coats maybe don't know everything. They're not divine and have all the answers to everything. So one thing I think a lot of people are confused about is what cancer actually is. So can you tell us, what is it? What does it mean when somebody gets a cancer diagnosis? Okay, well, I mean, cancer is basically overgrowth of cells. It's a collection of abnormal cells. We're all producing cancerous cells every day. They're just abnormal cells with different DNA in our body. A normally healthy immune system will be able to take care of those cancer cells and kill them, and will never be diagnosed with a life-threatening form of cancer. So that the simple definition is cancer is just a cancer cell is an abnormal cell. A cancerous tumor is a collection of abnormal cells that all get together. The problem is not necessarily the cells themselves. The problem with cancer that can become life-threatening is the fact that someone's immune system has been compromised to the extent that it has allowed those cells to grow, to form tumors, and to spread or metastasize through the body. So the cancerous cells are really, the tumors are really a symptom of a failed immune system. And so that's why when we have someone that's been diagnosed with a cancer that's supposed to be life-threatening, the first thing that most times, conventional oncologists will do is they'll try to cut it out if it's in an operable place. If they can get it with a knife, they're a lot of times going to try to get it. The problem with that approach to cancer treatment is the fact that the tumor is not really the problem. The tumor is just a symptom of the problem.
The real problem is that that person's immune system has failed and has allowed the cancer to grow and spread. Yeah. So we can cut out the tumor, and that's all fine and dandy initially, and that may provide a temporary fix to the cancer. But the bottom line is that if that person doesn't do something to correct the root imbalance in their system, doesn't do something to correct their immune system failure, then their cancer is most likely going to come back. And then you throw on top of that the surgery that's likely, you throw on top of the fact that then they're going to clean it up with radiation and chemo just in case. Yeah. Then you've got two substances that the radiotherapy and the chemotherapy, these two different approaches both compromise the immune system even further. And so that's why conventional medicine just doesn't really work very well with treating cancer, because they take a disease of a compromised immune system, which cancer is, and they try to treat it, and I use that term treat in quotation marks, I use that loosely. They try to treat it with radiotherapy and or chemotherapy that both will destroy the immune system. So that's the reason that traditional treatments just don't work very well, because they're not looking at the root cause of the cancer, and the root cause is a compromised immune system.
So what are some of the ways that the chemotherapy and the radiation, how do they destroy the immune system? I mean, can you give us what is it that they exactly do in our bodies? Yeah, sure.
Let me refer to chemotherapy specifically, because what radiotherapy will do is radiation damages DNA. So the main culprit in destroying the immune system actually is the chemotherapy. Radiation is just going to further contribute to cancer. There was an article by Mercola last year that radiation from CAT scans causes something like 30,000 cancers per year. So the radiation is going to exacerbate the problem with the cancer. Let me refer specifically to chemotherapy, though. Chemotherapy targets fast-dividing cells in our body. Now, cancer cells are fast-dividing cells, and so chemotherapy does kill cancer cells. I'll admit that. The problem is that the cancerous cells are not the only fast-dividing cells that we have in our bodies. We also have hair follicles that are fast-dividing cells. That's why someone's hair falls out when they do chemo. We also have a lot of the cells in the lining of our gut are fast-dividing cells. That's what makes people nauseated when they do chemotherapy, because it's killing the cells in your gut. The problem with that is that a lot of our immune system, a good portion of our immune system, is formulated in our intestines, in our gut. And so when you're killing those fast-dividing cells in the stomach, you're also killing a good part of your immune system there. Chemotherapy also kills the red blood cells in the bone marrow. That's another a big important factor in our immune system. So you've got chemotherapy is not only killing the fast-dividing cells which are cancerous, it's also killing a lot of the cells in our body that are good cells that form the basis for our immune system, because those cells are also fast-dividing cells.
Yeah, so it can't discriminate between which are good cells and bad cells.
Correct.
Yeah. And so how much has cancer increased over the years? It seems to be continual exponential rise. Yeah, well, if you look at around 1900, the rate was anywhere between 1 in 40 and 1 in 80 people were diagnosed with cancer. Then it just depends upon whose statistic you read, but cancer was relatively rare. Let's just put it that. Now, 2010 statistics from the World Health Organization are that 1 in 2 men alive today and 1 in 3 women that are alive today will face a cancer diagnosis. That shakes out to about 41% of people will face a cancer diagnosis. So it's just exploded over the last 100 years. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty big. That's kind of like the autism thing too. Yeah. And so what do you think are the main contributors, or some of the main contributors? I know there's several, but why do you think it's rising so much? Sure. Well, my theory is that the main contributors are the toxins that we are exposed to on a daily basis. The toxicity results in a compromised immune system, which results in cancer spread through the body. Now, when I say toxicity, I mean the environmental toxins that are being spread everywhere through large businesses that have big smokestacks, they're polluting the air. We have planes that are dumping chemicals on us in the sky, so our air is polluted with toxicity. Our food is now polluted with pesticides and fungicides and insecticides.
We have water that's been polluted over the last 100 years that now are dripping fluoride, which is a toxic waste according to the EPA, but they drip it in our water supply. We have just every direction we're being pelted with toxins. If you look 100 years ago, we talked about the rate of cancer being 1 in 40 to 1 in 80. We didn't have the insecticides and the pesticides on our foods. We didn't have the genetically modified foods that we have today. We didn't have fluoride and other heavy metals being dripped into our water supply. We didn't have the airplanes flying overhead dumping chemicals on us. We didn't have these large companies that are polluting the air with the smokestacks and so forth. We didn't have the mercury and the vaccines. I mean, April, if you look at it, every area of our life now compared to 100 years ago is filled with toxins that weren't in existence then. And so my theory on cancer is that's the reason that it has exploded to such an extent, is that we are being pelted with toxins 24/7 today, which weren't even around 100 years ago.
Yeah, and that's true. It's kind of unavoidable. It's, in our carpets and our flooring and our housing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned fluoride, and I've heard fluoride being described by some as one of the main contributors or one of the biggest cancer. Once we started fluoridating the water in the 1950s, that this is when we saw this explosion of cancer, or that was one of the things that led to that. I'm sure a lot of other things are happening at the same time. But specifically, what is it that fluoride, why is it so bad to ingest it? What does it do to our body when we do that?
Well, I mean, it's a toxic substance according to the EPA. So regardless of what it does, let's say regarding cancer or something else, it can't be good to ingest a toxic substance according to the EPA.
Right.
So, and so let me go back to the history of fluoride, and then I'll answer that question, because I think the history of fluoride is really interesting to explain to people. In the 1920s, the aluminum manufacturing business was huge. Okay, it was booming, and largely because of canning. And so, just kind of on a side note, if you're eating a lot of canned food, you're getting a lot of aluminum. Okay, so something to stay away from, because aluminum's heavy metal, not good for you.
Right.
Now this aluminum manufacturing process produced a toxic waste, which is sodium fluoride. Okay, their biggest dilemma at that point was how to safely dispose of this hazardous waste. And I'm talking specifically about a company in Pittsburgh called Alcoa. We used to live in Pittsburgh. Alcoa has their international headquarters right there on the Ohio River. Alcoa had already been marketing this toxic fluoride as an insecticide and a rat poison at that point. But they wanted a much larger market. So there's another reason to stay away from fluoride. Before they were dripping it in our water, it was marketed as an insecticide and a rat poison.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
Now, at that point, the U.S. Public Health Service was under the jurisdiction of Andrew Mellon, who was Treasury Secretary. Now, he also just happened to be the founder and major stockholder in Alcoa. Now, in the 1930s, there was a dentist for the Public Health Service. His name was Trindley Dean. He was dispatched to about 340 or 50 towns in Texas where there were water wells that contained high levels of fluoride. Now, of course, this is calcium fluoride, not sodium fluoride. Now, this is where they kind of pull the bait and switch on us. They say, well, hey, it's fluoride. Fluoride's fluoride. That's not necessarily true. Anybody that knows anything about chemistry, just because something has the word fluoride in it doesn't mean it's the same substance as another that has the word fluoride in it. But what Trindley Dean found was a little startling, that the teeth in the high fluoridated towns were often discolored and they were eroded, which is what is that? What's the condition that when you got the yellow brittle teeth? I'm trying to think of it.
Fluorosis?
Yeah, fluorosis. So, but there was some of them had appeared to have fewer cavities. So what he did is he threw out all of the bad towns, and he handpicked 21 communities out of the 350 or so, which appeared to show an increase in, or it appeared to show a decrease in cavities. So at that point, this is the only study that was done on it. Alcoa-funded scientist Gerald Cox in the late 1930s declared that fluoride was good for your teeth. I mean, does that sound like a rigged study or what, April?
It does.
I mean, he's got 340, 350 towns. He throws out 320-something of them, handpicks 21, and says that's a good study to show that fluoride's good for your teeth, despite the fact that we're not even talking about the sodium fluoride, which is the toxic waste. We're talking about calcium fluoride. But that was the study that was done. Not by a doctor or a dentist, but by a scientist who was working for Alcoa, and they were trying to figure out a market for their toxic waste.
Yeah.
Now,
and so they studied the calcium fluoride, but then what they actually put in our water is
sodium fluoride.
Right. So
Yeah,
that's a bait and switch kind of thing.
Exactly. Which basically, the sodium fluoride targets the osteoblasts in our body and destroys those cells, which is why the fluoride has been linked to osteosarcoma, which is bone cancer in boys. That's one of the cancers that has had a numerous amount of studies done on it, and it's definitively been linked to osteosarcoma in boys because it targets osteoblasts. But anyway, so real quick, back to this story.
Mm-hmm.
They also Alcoa had another roadblock at this point. You know, it's hard sometimes. The facts get in the way of what you want to get done when you're these multinational corporations. At that point, the Journal of the American Dental Association had warned that fluoride was harmful. This is in the early 40s. But in 1947, Oscar Ewing, who was an Alcoa lawyer, was also in charge of the Public Health Service. And he began a national water fluoridation campaign. They hired Edwin Bernays, who was known as the father of spin, and has written a book called Propaganda, where he argued that the manipulation of public opinion was easy. You just have to repeat it long enough and loud enough, and people will believe it, even if it's a lie. And so that's what they did with fluoride over the next 10 years. Their fluoridation campaign was one of the most successful campaigns in history. They basically brainwashed the entire American public, including dentists, to believe that fluoride dripped in your water 1 part per million was healthy for your teeth, despite the fact that they never did any research on it. And so that's how we got fluoride in our water.
Wow.
On a side note, too, Bernays, who was in charge of this fluoride campaign, he was also in charge of the campaign to promote cigarette smoking as healthy in the United States.
Right. Bernays, he's sort of what do they call him, like the grandfather of advertisement, I think, because he innovated the engineering of consent. So they just like you say, could brainwash people into thinking that they needed something that they didn't, you know, or whatever it was they were trying to market or sell, be it Coca-Cola or cigarettes or whatever.
Oh, yeah. He was, and as a matter of fact, if you remember some of those commercials, well, we're not that old, but if you've seen the old magazine ads, the numerous ads that are still available out there, that you can see the picture of the doctor holding up a lit cigarette saying that cigarettes are healthy, or I smoke 2 packs a day, cigarettes help prevent lung cancer, and so forth. Mm-hmm. That's what we were being bombarded with, this brainwashing campaign 60 years ago. And so, you know, they just shift brainwashing campaigns every few years.
Yeah. No, I found this this video from the 1950s, and it was in black and white, and it was Fred Flintstone, the cartoon, and Barney smoking cigarettes and talking about, you know, so, I mean, they were using it, obviously, even marketing to children. Even though they deny it, they still would do that. I mean, we see the same programs today with the vaccine program. They're using cartoons and children's programs to promote that as well.
Sure. And you know, when you look at this, April, I mean, if you don't have a conscience, this is a beautiful marketing campaign by Alcoa. You know, instead of having to pay huge costs to dispose of this toxic waste, they're now able to sell it to the government at a huge profit. So, from a business perspective, this is ingenious.
Right. Wow. Yeah, no, it's true. And most of our cities, I think, when they fluoridate the water, you actually have to pay extra for that. And I'm like, that's I mean, how big of a sham is that? Yeah. We don't even want it. Most people don't want it in their towns, and yet they have to pay more for it.
Right. But, you know, we're at a state now, we're at a position now in the United States where it doesn't really matter what people want. You know, the most recent survey I saw was the fact it was something like 70+% of people don't want drones over the United States, but we got them.
Right. That's right. Yeah, why would we want them? That doesn't make any sense at all. You'd have to be crazy. Yeah. So going back to, you mentioned some of the causes of cancer, and you talked about the toxins being coming out of the airplanes, the chemtrails. And this is kind of chemtrails are still not being acknowledged by our government, or it's kind of still considered a conspiracy theory. So how did you learn about them, and how do you, I mean, do we know I think we have some idea of some of the things that they're spilling out on us, but what do you know about them?
Sure. I first learned about chemtrails, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, because I actually looked up at the sky.
Right.
And And I noticed that the little straight lines that are in crisscross patterns in the sky are different than clouds.
Right.
And so that, I mean, I first noticed it just by looking, and then I started doing research, and the government has actually got patents on chemtrails, on weather modification, on geoengineering. So it's one of these things that is hidden in plain sight.
Right.
It reminds me of Jeremiah in the Bible, a verse in Jeremiah that talks about how you're a foolish people and you have eyes but you don't see, and you have ears and you don't hear. We've got eyes and we don't see. I mean, I've talked to people that are seemingly intelligent people about chemtrails, and they say, no, that's just jet, that's just jet exhaust.
Right.
Well, there's a big difference between jet exhaust and chemical trails, because a typical contrail from an airplane will dissipate in 30 seconds or so, and it'll be gone. Chemtrails, these chemical trails, are, you'll see the line going across a previously crystal clear blue sky, and it'll be up there for hours, and this line spreads out into like a murky haze. That's what a chemical trail is, a chemtrail. You just got to open your eyes to see this. It's not really rocket science. I'm flabbergasted at the amount of people that are seemingly intelligent people that will ignore the fact that chemtrails are up there. I mean, before, about 15 years ago, jets had never spewed emissions that hung over the skies for hours. But now they do. And as a matter of fact, I was just looking out a couple of days ago, and I actually tried to take a picture of this. There was 2 planes that were flying above my house. And they appeared to be about the same altitude because they appeared to be about the same size to me. So one of them wasn't higher than the other. They were one flying one direction, one flying the other direction. One had no contrail at all, or just a little bit of a contrail, which immediately evaporated within a couple seconds. The other was getting rid of a chemtrail, chemicals. And it was from one side of the horizon to the other, there was a white line that then hung in the air for several hours and just kept expanding until what we had was a blue sky turned into a hazy sky, because that wasn't the only chemtrail. There was other planes that flew over after that and turned the sky into a murky haze. These were 2 planes, the same altitude. One left a contrail, one left a chemtrail. I mean, I don't understand how people don't get this.
Right. When you're pointing to it at the sky, it's right there. Look at it. And they say, oh, no, that's not what it is. It's true. There seems to be some sort of suspension of logic, or like we're kind of
doublethink. It's
Orwellian.
Doublethink. It's like our government, they promise transparency while they hide everything.
Right.
Now they declare war when they get the Peace Prize.
Yeah, exactly. It's just,
and I just did a Cancer Truth newsletter on chemtrails in February, so I've got links to the patents that the government has on geoengineering and cloud bursting and chemtrails and all this. I mean, it's hidden in plain sight. They've been experimenting with this for 80 years, but specifically with the chemical trails, about the last 10, 15 years, they've gotten really, really heavy and much worse. But that's, there's a great documentary by my friend, he's one of the producers, Edward Griffin, who wrote the book on The Creature from Jekyll Island and The World Without Cancer. Ed is one of the producers on a documentary called What in the World Are They Spraying?, which is about the best documentary on chemtrails that I've ever seen. They've done analysis in places where they shouldn't, there's no factories, where there's no industry, where it should, up in Alaska, in pristine areas of the wilderness where there's nothing. And they've done analysis on the snow, and they've got 60, 70, 80, 100 times the normal limit of aluminum in the snow. And the only explanation is that it's being dumped down from the skies.
Yeah. Right. And you mentioned the patents, and that we know that there are certain groups that are actually contributing to trying to finance these programs through NASA.
Yeah.
And one of them is the Gates Foundation.
Yep.
And so what do you think of the Gates Foundation and the work that they're doing?
Oh, Bill Gates is just serving God in his own words. He's just serving God, trying to save the world, despite the fact that his polio vaccine just caused 48,000 plus cases of paralysis in India.
Right.
Despite the fact that he's on record as saying that vaccines are a good way to depopulate the earth.
Yeah.
He's an evil man.
Yeah. So I I agree. I mean, I find that a lot of people who kind of give him a pass that they think that maybe he doesn't really know, but I'm kind of going, how do you not know when your vaccine is killing all these people, or if you have to give it to them at gunpoint?
Well, look, look, he owns, I don't know what, 500,000 shares of Monsanto? Do we need to say anything more?
Right. But Monsanto is one of the ones that I believe is we're contributing to the geoengineering projects as well, because these are they're resistant, or they're destroying all the crops except for their genetically engineered crops. From what I was saying, remember from the documentary that you mentioned, I believe that was one of the things that was going on. They were starting to realize that their farms and things were all dying, their gardens were all dying. Yeah. So, yeah.
Real quick, while I think about it, because I'll forget this, Monsanto's also experimenting with a seed that's aluminum resistant. Mm-hmm. So, they're dumping aluminum in the skies that are killing us, killing the plants, but they're developing an aluminum resistant seed. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's back to the whole, marketing thing that we were talking about with the fluoride. I mean, it's just it isn't that convenient for them that they're working on that and dumping this at the same time.
Yeah.
And
you know what? Also, if anybody that's listening that still is curious about these chemtrails, whether they're real or not, just do a search for H.R. 2977, which is called the Space and Preservation Act of 2001. In that document, the U.S. government openly admits the existence of chemtrails and weather control weapons and mind control weapons, tectonic laser weapons. I mean, it's all in this document. It's hidden in plain sight. And there's several recent articles within the last couple of years, USA Today articles, Science Daily articles, where the government admits that, yeah, they're chemtrailing us, but they say the reason is to prevent global warming. So it's gone from 15 years ago, if you mentioned chemtrails, you're a conspiracy theorist, to now, oh yeah, they exist, but they're for a good purpose.
Right. Yeah, we can have a reasonable amount of toxins into the environment and it's okay. Yeah, and what's the name of that again? You said, what was that number?
It's called H.R. 2977, the Space and Preservation Act of 2001.
Okay. I'm going to write that down because I'd like to talk about that or share that with people.
Sure.
And so great, good information. So going back to, you mentioned Edward G. Griffin. He did a film about A World Without Cancer. Did a documentary a long time ago. And so I'm curious about the use of vitamin B17, and because that was sort of what his focus of the film was, if I remember correctly. Can you tell me what that is and how that works to destroy cancer?
Yeah, sure. And I just interviewed Ed about a week ago on my show. So he's a great guy, nice man, just a huge heart on this guy, and he just wants to help people, and he wants to get the word out there. So I really think highly of Ed Griffin. He's a good man, and I'm glad he's on our team. Very smart man.
Yeah.
But yeah. And that actually was my introduction to natural cancer treatments back almost 17 years ago. I started learning about B17. I saw a show on Extra TV. Somebody gave me a videotape back then when we still had videotapes, and it was Jason Vale, who's an arm wrestler in New York State, and he had cured his terminal cancer by eating apple seeds and apricot seeds. So that was my introduction to natural treatments. So, and this is the same, this B17 or Laetrile or what's the other word I'm trying to think of? Amygdalin. Amygdalin is the scientific name for it. These are all the same molecule, just referred to in different ways. And this is what's in apple seeds, apricot seeds, grape seeds, and a lot of other seeds contain this. Millet, the grain contains this. A lot of grasses and herbs out in the field contain B17. It's a naturally occurring vitamin, basically. Mm-hmm. But the way that it kills cancer cells is very interesting. It's almost like a natural, selectively toxic cancer killer. And we talked earlier about the fact that chemotherapy is not selectively toxic. It kills fast-dividing cells that are cancerous and also kills fast-dividing cells that are our immune system that we need. B17 is not that way. Each molecule of B17 contains 1 unit of hydrogen cyanide, 1 unit of benzaldehyde, and 2 units of glucose or sugar. Now, people hear the cyanide and they immediately get scared and they say, oh, I heard you shouldn't eat these because these apple seeds or apricot seeds because the cyanide will kill you.
Right.
Well, actually, vitamin B12, which is cyanocobalamin, also contains cyanide. There's a lot of different vitamins contain cyanide. You just hear about B17 contains cyanide because they're trying to scare you. And here's the way it works. In order for the hydrogen cyanide to become dangerous, it's got to be unlocked. And that can only be done in the body by an enzyme, which is called beta-glucosidase. And now this beta-glucosidase is present all over the human body in tiny, tiny quantities, not enough to unlock it, but it's only present in large quantities, enough to unlock this molecule at one place, and that's the cancer cells. So cancer cells, which have the beta-glucosidase, they unlock this molecule, this B17 molecule, and the hydrogen cyanide is unlocked at that point, at the cancerous site. So is the benzaldehyde, which is also a potent poison. And so the cancer cells get a double whammy of cyanide and benzaldehyde. The combination of those two is about 100 times more deadly than either of them in isolation. It literally obliterates cancer cells. But then you might ask, what about the danger to the rest of the body? You just unlocked this toxic poison, these toxic poisons. Now, there's another enzyme that's called rhodamase, which is found in abundance in healthy tissues all over the body. It's not found at cancer cells, but it's found everywhere else. So it has the ability to break down this poison, this cyanide and benzaldehyde poison, into a silicate, which is basically like an aspirin, and it helps with pain control. So it's like God's natural treatment for cancer. It kills the cancer cells, then your body secretes an enzyme, rhodamase, that turns it into a natural painkiller. So it's selectively toxic. It only targets cancer cells. Pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is, and it's the way you said that it's like God's natural way of. I think of that sometimes because it seems like these natural fighters that we have, compared to man's sort of creation of that or trying to replicate it, seem to have intelligence, whereas like, the antibiotic or the chemotherapy, it doesn't distinguish the difference between your healthy cells and your negative cells, but then the ones that were just created by God seem to know the difference. Like a cranberry can kill an infection without destroying your flora, whereas an antibiotic will kill the infection, but it will destroy your flora and then cause you to get more infections. So it's sort of just an interesting way to describe it, and I think it's accurate. It seems to have intelligence. It's
interesting that what man tries to do is they'll take an herb or something in nature, and they'll try to isolate one of the beneficial properties, and they'll try to patent it so they can make a lot of money.
Right.
You can't patent a weed. You can't patent an herb. You can't patent a seed. Well, actually, you can. Monsanto's patent seeds.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Only Monsanto can.
Right.
Those rules don't apply to you or me, just to the multinational corps that rule the world.
Right.
But you can't patent the natural substances, really. And so what they'll do is they'll try to take something. Look at it. Remember the 20 years ago, the scare about ephedrine?
Yes.
Remember, like the natural over-the-counter speed that truck drivers were taking, and it was causing all these, deaths and heart problems, which it was causing some problems with the heart. It wasn't near the extent that they led us to believe, but it was causing some problems. Well, the reason is they took ephedra, which is natural, the herb, and they tried to extract one of the actives out of it, and they made it into ephedrine, the synthetic over-the-counter drug, which caused a lot of problems with heart palpitations and bronchodilation problems and so forth. The reason that it caused the problems is because they took one active out of ephedra and they isolated it and they patented it, or they tweaked it and patented it. If you take the herb, the mahuang, and you take the whole molecule and you take all of the actives, that never causes heart problems. Ephedra in a natural state it never causes any problems with heart palpitations because there are other actives within the herb that actually work against the heart palpitation issue. So when taken together as an entire herb, the synergy of all these actives make it completely harmless to someone's heart. But when you take that one molecule out and you patent it and you sell it as a drug, then you can have heart problems. And that's just one instance about that kind of exemplifies how man will try to take a natural herb, patent it, and sell it, but it doesn't really work, and it can cause problems.
Yeah, I've had this concern about, because as you know, there's been this criminalization of cannabis and hemp being used for medicinal purposes for so many years, and it's still being, even though like in my state, California, it's legal, but the federal government continuously takes down these clinics and makes them go out of business. And so, but I read recently that the government actually has a patent on certain marijuana seeds, and I'm going, oh, that doesn't sound good.
Yeah,
you know?
I've read that too.
Yeah, and so that is a way for them to take something that is naturally beneficial and just once they get involved in it and they have FDA approval and they get their patents and everything, then they're going to market that, and then that it's going to lose its benefits.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
You know, it's interesting about hemp. If you want to talk about that right now, it's a pretty interesting subject. Let me give you a quiz, okay?
Okay.
Tell me which of the founding fathers said this quote.
Okay.
Make the most you can of the Indian hemp seed and sow it everywhere.
I'm going to say that was George Washington.
There you go. George Washington. Good job.
Right.
Yeah, our founding fathers all grew hemp.
Yeah.
They all grew hemp, okay? I mean, Jefferson grew hemp, Washington grew hemp, Franklin grew hemp, John Adams grew hemp. They all grew hemp. There was a Popular Mechanics article from the late 1930s that indicated that there were over 25,000 different uses for hemp. It's not just for smoking, okay? That's one use that people have. I mean, as soon as you hear hemp, you think, oh, that person's a pothead. Oh,
right.
Hemp can be used as paper. As a matter of fact, that's how it initially was used that caused so much problem. It's not the fact that people were smoking hemp. They weren't a bunch of potheads sitting around getting high, smoking joints. There was a man that was named Randolph Seymour Hirsch, and he owned newspapers all over the country, and he also owned millions of acres of trees that they used, and he had mills that milled those trees into paper. The hemp plant was threatening his paper pulping industry because for every 1 acre of hemp is the equivalent of 10 acres of trees when you convert it to paper. Okay, 1 acre of hemp produces as much raw fiber as 10 acres of trees. So, and it also produces a stronger paper that lasts incredibly long. It doesn't yellow with age and so forth. Matter of fact, the initial drafts of the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights were drafted on hemp paper. So hemp was initially demonized by Randolph Seymour Hirsch and his buddies because of the fact that they were trying to save their industry, not because there was anything wrong with hemp. It was only later that they rolled out these propaganda films like Reefer Madness that tried to make us afraid of hemp because, hey, if the Mexicans and the blacks are going to smoke hemp and they're going to rape all the white women. That's what Reefer Madness basically communicated. That's a lie.
Yeah.
Nobody commits violent crimes when they smoke dope. They just sit around and eat and watch television.
Right.
They don't commit violent crimes. If you want to see violent crimes, let's look at violent crimes that are committed when people are drunk.
Yeah.
And you'll see that the number compared to when people are high is about 1,000 to 1. But nobody's moaning about alcohol right now. The reason that hemp was outlawed is because there's a lot of medicinal purposes for hemp. It's been used in teas and tonics for thousands of years, and it's an effective treatment for cancer as well. It also relieves pain. It helps with the appetites of cancer patients because it will help them to be able to eat. Because most cancer patients don't actually die from cancer; they die from what's called cachexia, which is the wasting syndrome. And so hemp will actually, if you smoke a little bit of hemp, it'll make you hungry. Because that's what, that's the munchies. Everybody says, oh, you smoke dope, you get the munchies. Well, it'll actually make a cancer patient hungry, which is a good thing, because that's why most of them die, is because they're not hungry and they don't eat and their body begins to digest itself. It really helps with people that have cachexia. There have been scientific studies on the fact that hemp cures breast cancer, colorectal cancer, prostate cancer, stomach cancer, pancreatic, skin cancer, leukemia, uterine cancer, cervical cancer, biliary tract cancer, and the list goes on. And these are studies at National Institutes of Health, Harvard Research, several medical schools in Japan have studied them, medical schools in Sweden have studied them, Cancer Research Journal. I mean, the list of scientific studies that have been done on the curative properties of hemp on cancer is almost endless.
And how does it work as a cancer fighter? What does it do? Is it like an anti-inflammatory, or how does it help the body do that?
Yeah, well, the substances or the chemicals in hemp that are responsible for many of the medical benefits are called the cannabinoids. And so, and as a matter of fact, delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol is, abbreviated THC. That's what most people think of as, that's what gets you high if you smoke it. But it's the cannabinoids in the hemp plant that actually have been shown to target and destroy cancer cells. So they are selectively toxic to cancer cells. There was the first study that was done on hemp plant for cancer was done at the University of Virginia Medical School or the Medical College of Virginia. I don't have that right in front of me here, but it was, I think it was the Medical College of Virginia. It was the early 70s. And it was at the behest of the United States government and the National Institutes of Health. Now, the preordained purpose of this study is they wanted to show that marijuana damages the immune system and causes cancer. However, the study showed exactly the opposite of that. It showed that the THC, this one particular cannabinoid, slowed the growth of 3 different kinds of cancers: lung, breast, and leukemia, I believe. Oops. Can't have that information made public, can we? So the DEA stepped in, and they shut down the study, and all the further research on that was basically buried. There was a study in 2000 in Madrid that the researchers showed that the THC, that particular cannabinoid in hemp, inhibits the spread of brain cancer because it selectively induces apoptosis, which is cell death, in the brain tumor cells, but it doesn't negatively impact any of the surrounding cells. Okay, this is in a PubMed article that you can search for this research on PubMed. There was a 2004 study by a researcher that was published. His name was Guzman, and he was published in the Cancer Research Journal. Showed that the THC, the particular cannabinoid THC, inhibited the glioma tumors in people that are in rats that had glioblastoma multiforme. Okay, so there was a study at Harvard, 2007. It was published in Science Daily that showed that the THC in hemp caused lung cancer cells to commit apoptosis or normal cell death, programmed cell death. It basically caused the lung cancer cells to self-destruct. So the research is out there. The only reason that hemp is not legalized in all 50 states is because they're still running this massive brainwashed propaganda campaign against hemp. I'm glad to see that many states, including, California, Colorado, they have medicinal marijuana. I think that they have it here in Montana. A lot of states they allow medicinal marijuana, but the bottom line is I think it's absurd to make a plant that grows naturally, make it illegal to grow that plant. Meanwhile, the FDA seems hell-bent on introducing as many toxic drugs to the market as possible. You look at Vioxx, for instance, which was linked to the death of over 50,000 people. FDA approved that.
Yeah, right.
That's okay, but you can't grow a plant in your backyard or you're going to do hard time.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting how when they have something on the market that kills people, like they had that egg recall a few years ago, and then they use that to say, well, people can't share their own eggs, unless they're FDA approved. No, you guys approved those ones that were bad. It's not coming from my backyard. It's just...
Yeah, a lot of times I look at those situations and I think, I question the stories.
Yeah.
I don't even know that I believe that there was all those contaminated eggs. So you're talking about salmonella, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I question that. When you look at the concerted effort that has been made over the past 20, 30 years specifically against natural supplements, it'll blow your mind. I mean, FDA back 10 years ago, the FDA sends letters to cherry growers that they can't link to scientific research on their websites that show that cherries cause or help with inflammation.
Right.
2-3 years ago, I think it was 2009, FDA sends a cease and desist letter to Diamond Foods, which is a walnut grower or walnut producer. They had linked to studies that show that walnuts help a variety of ailments. FDA tells them they got to take the research off their website or they're going to shut them down. You got the late 90s, the FDA was going to have a good old book burning for the stevia growers and manufacturers down in Texas. They were upset because stevia was being touted as a sweetener, which actually it's 100 times sweeter than sugar, but you're not supposed to tell people that it's sweet. They were going to burn all the books, but the media, thank God, was there, and they didn't have a book burning. But, you know, you look at all these instances of suppression of treatments and the persecution of people that are not even promoting treatments for cancer, but just selling cherries or cherry extract, selling walnuts, selling stevia extract so you can sweeten your tea with something that's not sugar. And they're going to shut these people down. I mean, it blows your mind when you see the fact that, I mean, the FDA is, I call them the Federal Death Administration. They're not the Food and Drug Administration. They're promoting death because the only people that are in trouble with the FDA are people that are promoting natural substances. You get a nice, I've heard it said that the FDA never met a toxic drug that they didn't like.
Yeah. I agree. The FDA are just, they become thugs. I mean, we here in California, I think it was a year or so ago, we had the raw milk raids.
Yeah.
And they've just been after these people, and it's like anything that they can't control, they don't want to allow. And so, do you know anything about Codex Alimentarius, or have you heard about that?
Oh, sure, yeah. As a matter of fact, my book, Cancer Step Outside the Box, contains an entire chapter on Codex. So I'm not sure what is going on with it right now. It seems to be not being talked about as much as it was a couple years ago, but sure, I mean, what Codex is the food code. It's the food code for the world, and under the guise of keeping us safe from contaminated food and contaminated supplements, they will basically try to take over all of the natural healing remedies in the world and limit their sales to extremely small amounts of vitamins and supplements that won't do any good, or they'll just turn them over to the drug companies, and then they can sell them at exorbitant prices. I mean, Codex has already been implemented in many countries. It's implemented in many countries in Europe. I was talking about it on another radio show that I was doing an interview in Holland a couple months back, and somebody emailed me and said, yeah, you know, we here in Netherlands, we can't even get vitamin C at greater than, I think it's 50 milligrams per tablet, or maybe 5 milligrams. I mean, they've effectively made it to where you have to take the whole bottle to get any kind of a therapeutic effect of vitamin C. And that's what is on the agenda here in the United States. I pray to God it never gets implemented here, but that's what's on the agenda, is basically regulating the supplements so that you can't get any kind of a therapeutic effect out of them. And here's an interesting quote from one of the chief scientists of Codex Alimentarius. His name is Rolf Grosskloss. He's a German medical doctor, and he has been quoted as saying that nutrition has nothing to do with health. So these are the people that are running the decision makers or the decision making boards at Codex Alimentarius. Doctors that say things as asinine as nutrition has nothing to do with your health.
Yeah, I've heard that said before. I mean, in my community, in the autistic community, I've had a lot of doctors, friends of mine, and the doctors will tell them, "Oh, well, that doesn't make a difference. You shouldn't put your kid on a healthy diet. You shouldn't modify their diet in any way. Organic doesn't matter."
That makes about as much sense as, I used this example before, but I'll use it again. Before we went on vacation this summer across the country. So before I took my car 2,000 miles across the country, I took it to the oil place to get the oil changed, to get all the belts changed, get the fluids changed. And so I'm sitting there with my son, getting all the stuff done to the car, and this big fat guy walks in. I mean, he was big. He was probably 350, 400 pounds. He's munching on a donut. And they said, "Okay, so what do we need to do to your car?" And he was very specific. So he's going, "Okay, I need 10W30, heat resistant, cool resistant, whatever it was." I mean, it was a very specific kind of oil he wanted in his car. And I want this kind of lubricant in here, and I want this kind of fluid put here. And it just seemed so ironic to me that he was so specific about the fluids and the fuels that he put in his car, because he knew that affected its maintenance and its performance. But he's sitting there eating a big donut, and his body has just gone to heck in a handbasket. But isn't that the message that doctors give you when they tell you that nutrition has nothing to do with your health? I mean, even your basic, uneducated person that's never even gone to school knows that the fluids that you might put in your car will affect its performance. But we're expected to believe that because somebody has a MD after his or her name and they prance around in a white lab coat with a stethoscope, that if they tell us that nutrition has nothing to do with health, we're supposed to believe that?
Right.
It's absurd.
No, yeah, it is absurd. And I always tell, people who ask me about the nutritional program, I'm working on with my son, and they say, well, the doctor says that stuff doesn't work, or that's not. I go, look, it might not be a cure, but don't you work better when you feel good? I mean, how are you going to get your work done when you're sick? Have you ever tried to work when you have the flu? I mean, you're miserable.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, how do you expect your child to, perform well during therapy or school or any of these things if they're unhealthy, if they're not, getting good nutrition into their body? So it's, as you say, it's like, I mean, it's just absurd to tell people that doesn't matter. And speaking of that, I actually interviewed this fellow who cured himself of cancer using dietary protocol, and that's exactly the advice that he was given. He had the surgery, and he asked his doctor, what should I eat? And he said, something, don't lift anything heavier than a beer or something. That was the comment that he made to him, And but then he did his own research. So I wanted to ask you about that. About some of these diets that people go on to cure themselves of cancer. Some are very, very successful, and his was the raw food diet.
Yeah.
He did that for a few months, and then he lost too much weight, so he started, he modified it a bit so that he could put some more weight back on. But there's a bunch. There's Gerson, there's Budwick. What do these do, and, can you give us a kind of a description of what they are? And
Sure. And, I know personally dozens of people that have contacted me over the past few years that have cured their cancer with nothing more than changing their diet into a raw food diet or a completely organic diet or whatever. There's lots of different diets, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But just scores and scores of people that are alive today that were told that they'd be dead in 2 months, 6 months, or whatever, that did nothing more than change their diet. So that kind of shoots holes in the theory that diet has nothing to do with your health.
Right.
No, what you need, little boy, is just go eat your genetically modified foods and your pesticide-laden vegetables, drink plenty of fluoride water, and you're going to be nice and healthy. That's just absurd.
Yeah.
Your doctors and other people say that the diet has not. The diet is probably the most important thing in a cancer treatment protocol.
Mm-hmm.
The diet, changing your diet to an organic. Not necessarily all raw. I mean, I'm not a subscriber to the completely raw diet, and I'm not a subscriber to leaving out any. You don't have to not eat meat.
Mm-hmm.
You need to make sure that it's good, healthy meats that you eat. But I think that just changing your diet into an organic, probably 80% raw, making sure that the meats that you eat are from free-range chickens or not farm-raised fish or grass-fed cows or whatever. I think that can make a bigger impact on your health and your treatment than anything else that you do. As a matter of fact, I know many people that have basically sabotaged a good cancer treatment protocol with a terrible diet. Because your diet's one of the primary culprits that got you to where you are. Now, not all the time. I know people that have eaten good their whole life and have been diagnosed with cancer. Well, something else is going on with the toxic overloads that you just couldn't take care of on your own.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that everybody that's sick with cancer is the diet has caused it, but a large portion of those people, I believe it has. So it only makes sense to me that one of the first things that you would need to do is to correct that diet that was a contributor to the disease. And so that's one of the first things that I will tell people that contact me is you need to evaluate your diet. You need to change up your diet to where it's no longer causing the immune system failure that results in cancer. Because a lot of the things that we eat are causing the immune system being compromised.
Right.
You're eating genetically modified foods. It's compromising your immune system. It's going to cause cancer. It's causing sterility. There was that study out of University of Caen in France that was released in October. It's the first long-term study on genetically modified foods. Proves that it causes cancer.
Right.
So one of the first things that you want to do, eat natural, eat organic, eat fresh. Stay away from all processed foods because all processed foods, unless they're organic, and even then you need to limit processed organic foods, but let's just say get rid of processed foods altogether. They all contain genetically modified ingredients. If you look at them, they all contain high fructose corn syrup, corn solids, hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated soybean oil, cottonseed oil. Soy, cottonseed, and corn are all genetically modified. Over 90% of the crops are GM. They cause cancer.
Yeah.
So you've got to eliminate that from your body if you're trying to fight cancer. I mean, doesn't that make sense? It makes sense to me.
Yeah. It does make sense, and it's like we recently took sugar out of my son's diet, and mine, everybody else's too, but we've been fighting candida for years.
Okay.
And I thought, if he could just, we could have, palm sugar. We could have these natural ones, and that would be okay. But it really got better once we took out the sugar.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like trying to fill the bucket when there's still a hole in it. You know, and you can be doing all these healthy things, but then sabotaging yourself by not.
Sure. And that's a good point about sugar too, because Candida thrives on sugar. So does cancer. So if there's nothing else that you can do, two things that I will recommend to people immediately if they're diagnosed with cancer: eliminate sugar and eliminate sodas.
Yeah.
Just two easy things. Well, it sounds easy. It may not be easy to do if you're drinking 3 liters of soda a day. But those are two of the most practical things you can do. Even if you don't even change your diet much, get rid of, well, you're going to have to change your diet if you're eating a bunch of sweets. But other than that, if you just get rid of sugar, you're getting rid of cancer's primary fuel. And if you get rid of sodas, you're either getting rid of the sugar in the sodas as well, or the aspartame, which causes cancer, by the way. Recent study shows that it doubles the risk of leukemia and lymphoma. And you're also getting rid of a very acidic drink, which is going to lower the pH of your body, which is going to cause cancer cells to thrive. So if nothing else, get rid of sodas and sugar. That's a good start.
Yeah, and isn't it that when a person has a cancer diagnosis or has a diagnosis of diabetes or something, often the doctor will say, oh, we'll switch from sugar sodas to diet sodas.
Yeah. What an idiot.
Yeah.
Say that. Because you look at aspartame, which is in most diet sodas. I mean, it's an excitotoxin. It kills your brain cells. It causes brain damage. It causes brain lesions. It causes cancer. The list of side effects from aspartame are endless. Yeah. But they're going to put it in our food. It was on the Pentagon's list of biowarfare weapons in 1976. 5 years later, it's approved for use in our food, and now it's in almost everything. The aspartame in our food is almost as absurd as fluoride in our water. Yeah.
Right, and it's also in so many different things, too. And I remember reading about this years ago, and it was one of the most controversial food substances that was approved by the FDA. It was barely approved at first, and they originally said it could only be used in dry foods, like half a teaspoon or something. Yeah. And then each time, they got lobbied, they just raised the safety levels and just continue on. Now it's like I don't know of any recommendation at all that people need to limit. I think that's just been forgotten.
Yeah, well, it has, and there's an interesting story about aspartame. It was initially, I told you about being on the Pentagon's list of biowarfare weapons. It's an excitotoxin. Mm-hmm. It's got 3 components. It's 50% phenylalanine, 40% aspartic acid, and it's 10% methanol, which is wood alcohol. Now, here's what's important about aspartame. When the temperature exceeds 86 degrees, the methanol with the wood alcohol converts to formaldehyde, which is embalming fluid. Okay? So when you ingest aspartame, if your body's above 86 degrees, the methanol turns to formaldehyde. So I'd rather not be drinking or eating something that turns into embalming fluid before I'm dead. Don't need that. Don't need that extra embalming fluid just yet.
Right. Yeah, I don't know which is worse, the aspartame or the high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, I know. It's pick your poison.
Right, exactly. So it's kind of like the elections.
Yeah.
Your poison.
Exactly.
And you mentioned keeping the body alkaline and how sodas are acidic, and I've noticed that you post a lot about baking soda, one of the very simple ways to try and keep your body alkaline. So what do you do? How do you take it, and how do you recommend people take it?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll take just a cup full of water, 6-8 ounces of water, and put a tablespoon of baking soda in it, and just stir it up and drink it. And I'll take that before bed. So that's what I do personally, and it will alkalinize your body. It's a great daily habit to get into. The only thing negative about it is it'll make you burp a little bit. It's like it's like drinking a soda without the sugar. Almost, it tastes a little bit carbonated, so it'll give you a little bit of burp gas. But other than that, I think it's great. I think baking soda is great. I mentioned it in the book. There's doctors that use baking soda to treat cancer, but under the belief that cancer is a fungus. Mm-hmm. And I don't subscribe to that. I don't think cancer is a fungus, but I think that cancers and fungal infections have a lot of different similarities, and they respond the same way to certain things. And so baking soda is a good way to get rid of fungus as well as cancer because of the fact that it alkalizes the body. Mm-hmm. sometimes let's say you'll take a protocol which eliminates sugar, and you maybe get rid of the cancer because of that, and then or you may think you have a fungal infection, but you actually might have cancer, but you get rid of the sugar and you cure whatever it was. I think a lot of times fungal infections and cancer are mixed up. They're misdiagnosed, but they respond the same way to certain treatments, and so that's why I think that the most prominent doctor that espouses that is Dr. Tudor Simoncini out of Rome, Italy. He said he's got a book called Cancer is a Fungus. Mm-hmm. Well, I think a lot of the time, the reason that the cancer responds so well to these antifungal treatments is not that it's a fungus, but it's just they're very similar. Cancer and fungal infections are similar, and they respond the same way to certain treatments. But I don't think that cancer is actually a fungal infection at all.
Well, that's interesting, and that's just a really good, simple way to sort of increase. And do you recommend, I know there was some controversy a while ago about certain baking sodas that might have aluminum. They don't, I know, but there are certain ones that might be better than others. Which is the one that you use? Yeah,
we use the Bob's Red Mill.
Bob's, yeah.
Yeah, they've got a good brand.
Yeah, theirs is just a natural one, from what I understand. The Arm & Hammer, unlike what people said, it doesn't have aluminum in it, but it's synthetic. It's not a natural form.
Right.
Yeah. So, great. Well, thank you so much, Ty, for being on the show. We are out of time, so
okay.
I'm going to go ahead and take a short break and then come back to close out the show. But tell us once again your website and where we can hear you on the radio.
Okay. Yeah, sure. My website is www.cancertruth.net. The name of my first book, I've written several books, but the first one was Cancer, Step Outside the Box. And I've got a weekly radio show on the Robert Scott Bell Show on Natural News Network. It's Wednesdays at noon Central Time. But anyway, thanks, April, today for the interview. I've really enjoyed it. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I'd love to have you back. So I'm going to go ahead and take a short break, and when I get back, my co-host will rejoin me to go ahead and close out the show. But once again, thank you, Ty. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, April. Same to you. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hello. Thanks for having me on your radio. Even though we're not from a famous rock and roll band, if we were, even though we sound a little like we are, we definitely wear a Conspiracy Realist t-shirt, because they're gear, aren't they? Oh yeah, they're really gear. I want to write a song about them. Conspiracy Realist t-shirt at truththtees.com. I gotta think of the middle A. Shop.truththtees.com. What does that mean? It's the internet. That. I don't know. The net. Between things. Shop.truththtees.com. What's that? So you get Conspiracy Realist t-shirt. Oh, yeah.
We're back. Yeah, we're back. Thanks for listening to Truth or Talk. Visit our website, truthertees.com, or store shop.truthertees.com, where we have our official where we're selling Liam Scheff's book, Official Stories. If you buy 3 of our Conspiracy Realist t-shirts, you can get a free copy of his book. And he's going to come in for a few minutes in the last segment, but we wanted to just pop in real quick and thank again our guest, Ty Bollinger. He was awesome, right?
Yeah, I listened to it. I'm so sad I wasn't able to join you guys. I'll have to do next time. Thanks, Ty, for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, he was great. I really, really enjoyed talking to him, and he was in the intro, we talked briefly to Janette, and she was very knowledgeable about hemp, and she was doing this telethon to try and raise awareness and money to support what it is that they're doing to get hemp legalized and make sure that people can have access to it. And so I was really glad that he talked about it. We were able to squeeze that in and get a lot of information about hemp and its many uses. Because he went on to talk about more than just its use for cancer as a treatment for cancer. So we know that that's true, that it's very medicinal in that regard. And so anyway, we're going to keep this short because we are going to bring in Liam Scheff at the end of the show to tell us about, he went to the Gerson Clinic recently. He took a trip there and gave a talk, the Gerson Clinic in San Diego, which is, if you guys don't know what the Gerson Clinic is, Gerson is also a form of cancer treatment. So I think what we're learning on this show is that there's so many multiple
cures for cancer, ways to get rid of cancer.
Yeah, there isn't just a one size fits all that you basically, which is what you usually from the mainstream medical route. They're going to just
definitely, yeah. Plus, You know, there are different reasons why people get cancer too. But
right.
the mainstream would like to have you know it's a mystery. We don't know. It just appears. We don't know what causes it. You know, but obviously it's I think vaccines, radiation. I think in some cases emotional stress, emotional anguish. Maybe people hold on to stuff in there. I don't know if have you ever heard of Louise Hay?
I have, yeah, I know.
Yeah, she talks a lot about that, right? About cancer being very it's emotionally based, I think is a good word for it.
Wow.
But yeah, there are different causes and different cures for cancer. But I think mainly, first and foremost, personally, I think it comes down to our diet and what we're ingesting, our environment. So.
Right. I think that, that's true. The emotional side can be the stress. I mean, we all know that when you're stressed out, your immune system's not functioning as well and things like that. Yeah. And when you're depressed or those kinds of things, you're more likely to get sick. So it's true. I agree with that, but but Ty, he really talked about, I mean, there's so many causes. When I asked him that, he was kind of like, vaccines, fluoride,
Yeah.
And he really knew about the chemtrail issue, which was good, and that he was able to talk about that and how that's going on, and that's also contributing to the rise in cancer and other diseases as well. So, and speaking of cancer, I wanted to just do a quick plug for my sister-in-law, Kamala, who's sick, and she's had a diagnosis of cancer, and they're working to raise money for stem cell therapy. And so I guess because her form of cancer is fairly rare, and it's caused some kind of physical effects, some degenerative diseases, like presents a little bit like multiple sclerosis. And so stem cell has been researched in regards to helping with those types of disorders. So they're working to raise money to get her some stem cell therapy. So if people want to help out, please go to fundly.com/healing Kamala. Fundly, FUNDLY.com/healing Kamala, KAMALA. And you can also just Google that, Fundly Healing Kamala, KAMALA, Kamala Bowden, and find that and see if you can help out and just give them a few dollars to try and raise the money, or if not, then just, if you don't have the money, then just send some well wishes and some prayers. You can post it on their page and see if you can help that way. So anyway, so I wanted to do just put that out there since we're doing a show about cancer today, and make sure that we can help in any way that we can. Kamala's situation. So. And with that, we're going to take a short break, because when we get back, like we said, we're going to talk to our friend Liam Scheff and find out what he learned when he went to the Gerson Clinic. So I'm really fond of Gerson, Max Gerson. And if you
love his daughter. His daughter's amazing.
Charlotte.
Yes.
Charlotte Gerson. And there's a great movie called A Beautiful Truth. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have.
I love that film. I watched that on Netflix. Like one night, I couldn't sleep or something, and I stayed up and watched The Beautiful Truth, and I thought, wow, what a great story, and it was really cool. So we're going to talk to him about that. So
I want to make one more thing. If you want to know a little bit more on cancer too, we also have an interview. We interviewed Chris Work. If you want to check that episode out, and he runs a blog called Chris Beat Cancer, and he talks about his journey of having cancer and curing himself of cancer. And he to this day he counsels people that have cancer and gives them advice, and it's great. I think it's always great to and very inspiring to talk to somebody who's actually had cancer.
Right.
When you talk to somebody, if you have cancer and you talk to somebody that's been through what you're going through and has made it out fine, it's really inspiring. Such statistics. To have a real life actual person, to talk to and to relate to is way better than that. So
yeah, it's in the stats too. I mean, a lot of that is because it's people who have gone down the road of using a complete traditional model, so it's just been all chemo and radiation. And so these things aren't, I mean, the success rate isn't very high with regards to using those types of treatments. And so that's the stats on it. But Perez, he did have the surgery, and then after that just went his own way and has been, I think, 9 years.
Yeah.
Cancer. Completely healthy. You can see pictures of him on his blog. The guy doesn't look like he's sick at all.
And he has a great sense of humor. Like, I remember that was one show where we laughed a lot.
Yeah.
We thought it was going to be all depressing and talking about cancer, but we laughed, but mostly.
I know, and I felt like that when I was talking to Ty, too, because he was very light and just fun to talk to, so it was interesting how you do these shows on cancer, but they're, it was very uplifting, and he had been through a lot of loss of family members, and that's kind of what got him thinking about all of this, and in the future I want to try and get G. Edward Griffin on. He mentioned him, and he did the movie, A World Without Cancer, about the vitamin B17, which we got to talk a little bit about, and that's another really interesting topic. And that guy's just like old school, like old. Oh, totally. Original truther, like
still a gangster truther, definitely.
And then just a cool guy on top of it. So he's somebody I like. So one last time, anybody willing to help, please check out Fundly.com/healingkamala, Kamala. Give money if you can, and fundraise for her if you can. If not, just some well wishes, some encouragement and some prayers. So because there are other ways, and they're trying to go through stem cells. So hopefully that they'll be successful and able to help her do that. And because that's my sister-in-law, so I want to see her get better. So, okay, with that said, we're going to take a break, and when we get back, we'll be talking to our friend Scheff.
Yeah, Scheff. Scheff in the house.
Today, Elmo's going to be talking about the new world order. Was it Dorothy? You believe the official story of 9/11? Yes, Dorothy. Everybody knows it was an intelligence operation carried out by Dick Cheney. That's why we're going to shop.truththetees.com. Was it Dorothy? They don't have shoes in fish sizes? Oh! Go to shop.truththetees.com and get your conspiracy rescue today, so people won't think you're an idiot.
Okay, welcome back to Truth Talk. Thanks for listening. And as promised, we said we were going to have our friend Liam Scheff to come in and talk to us about, since we're talking about cancer today, or we're talking about different forms, alternative treatments for cancer, we thought we'd bring him in because he just recently took a visit to the Gerson Clinic in San Diego. So please welcome to our show, Liam Scheff. Liam Scheff's co-host of the...
Hey. Yay. Applause.
There he is. Look at that.
There's only clapping because the light's on.
Oh, yeah. Look at him.
Hey, Scheff, what's going on?
Well, Henry.
Yes.
Are we only going
How was
last
that
name?
Gerson? You can do that. That's fine. I'm down.
No. Call me Liam. You call me Liam.
Liam.
The Gerson Clinic was a lot of fun. It was great fun to visit. When I was a young person and I became vegetarian or vegan-y or macrobiotic-y or whatever, I remember coming across the Gerson therapy as one of those wild California things that you could do if you wanted to cure yourself of cancer and you were just willing to go the unorthodox route. And of course I was interested, but that wasn't my problem. And I mean, that wasn't the problem. I was dealing with sugar problems. What do you call those? Hypoglycemia, but really sugar addiction. So I had to look at other stuff. But I remember reading about it, raw food. I tried raw food. Didn't really know how to do a raw food diet then. It wasn't, in 1990, there weren't easily available cold-pressed oils everywhere. That was something that was coming up and people were getting into, but that wasn't the first thing on the radar. The first thing that you did was you ate brown rice instead of white rice, and you ate, plant sugar, or I should say unrefined sugars instead of refined sugars. And it was a very slow movement towards actual health. at that rate, because you end up eating junky versions or good versions of junky things, which are still junky. But the Gerson Clinic used raw foods and juices and colonics and enemas, which of course sounded strange to me. Like, why I don't understand. That sounds kind of crazy. What would you put coffee up your tushy? Why would you put coffee up there? But they did. Coffee and tea and sometimes a nice afternoon gelato. No, you wouldn't do that. You would just coffee and tea, and you put it in your tushes after it cooled down. But I remember reading about it, and you read that this person survived cancer and that person survived cancer. And as I went along, of course, I met a lot more raw food people, and I became aware of other cancer treatments like the Hoxley treatment, and I think the Gerson therapy came back up, and other and the vitamin C treatment, the what's it called? The Linus Pauling Matthias Rath therapy made a big impression on me. And as you walk down the health food path, if you continue to study, you become aware of the liver. And the liver is not something that real doctors really worry about. They worry about the heart and the brain, and they're always trying to get drugs into your brain and to give you drugs to stop your heart disease. They don't worry about the intestines, and they don't really worry about the liver. But in Chinese medicine, the most important organ is the liver. It turns out that for Max Gerson, the most important organ was the liver, and he figured that out, being a doctor in Prussia, I believe, pre-Germany, and figuring out that his patients who were getting better on a light, raw food, vegetarian diet were not doing so because of any particular ingredient in the food, but because the ingredients were non-toxic and allowed the liver to detoxify. And he was able to cure a variety of maladies, or to have patients cure them. And so he followed this path, the same path as Chinese medicine. Clean the liver, as Ayurveda, clean the liver, and the rest of the body has a chance to heal. It's very interesting stuff. When I started working with Robert Scott Bell of the Robert Scott Bell Show, really that's a redundancy. His name is the same as his show, so the show should have a different name. Listener challenge, come up with a new name for the Robert Scott Bell Show. But he was telling me about putting coffee in his tuchus, and I said, well, why would you do that? And he said, well, you put coffee, room temperature, down, you lay on your left side, and the coffee, the caffeinated liquid, flows down don't use Red Bull or Coca-Cola, flows down the hepatic duct on the left, and goes into your liver and stimulates your liver at a high level to excrete accumulated accrued toxins. And I went, oh, that makes sense. That's like Chinese. And he said, in Chinese medicine, the liver is the most important organ of the body. It's the first organ of healing. I went, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, all right. Maybe that rings a bell. And then I got down to the Gerson Clinic. They're saying the same thing. And Max Gerson published a patient study of 50 of his patients, showing that they had all recovered. Even though some of them had amputations of parts of their body, they were cancer-free decades later, many of them. Decades. Like to the end of their lives, to 70s, 80s. And then he died. His daughter asserts that he died having been poisoned on a couple of occasions with arsenic by a mole sent by, the United States government agencies to spy on him in his lab. And, of course, this sounds crazy unless you study CIA tactics.
Definitely. Well, if a cure for cancer is on all of these diseases, it's over. It's over for the pharmaceutical industry. They're threatened by that. It's a done deal.
It's bad for them if parsley is better for you than chemotherapy. It's very bad.
Yeah.
Their bottom line is, of course, not the health of the patient, but the sickness of the patient, as Chris Rock said a number of years ago. They ain't never going to cure AIDS. Money's not in the cure. It's in the drugs. Stupid. It's in the drugs. He didn't go far enough and figure out the rest of it. But a smart comedian will figure out where the powers that be are lying to you, even if they don't do the investigative journalism to figure out what the lie is about specifically.
Well, maybe he knows and he's afraid to go too far because they might come and poison him with arsenic.
Maybe.
Comedians are interesting because I think that they are very wise and they have really good insight to society because it's their job to observe. But I think some maybe even know more than they preach because they're afraid, to be as outspoken. I don't know.
You mean they don't want to be Lenny Bruce? I mean, Lenny.
Yeah, Lenny Bruce or Bill Hicks or George Carlin and like.
Well, I don't think Bill Hicks was poisoned. Bill Hicks drank essentially a giant. Like if you could get a giant bull drunk, he would have had that much alcohol probably every day for a decade or so, and he smoked endlessly. So the idea that like there was no explanation for him getting sick in his early 30s. What I regret with Bill Hicks is that he didn't know anything about doing anything else with it, because you end up missing him. You watch his stuff and you go, I wish he were around. So we have to be him if we like him. But who was the other guy? Who you mentioned?
George Carlin. George Carlin. Did he smoke too?
No, he wasn't. I don't think he was anything other than a pass. I take your point, though. If Chris Rock came out and said, "Oh, the HIV test doesn't work. You're all freaking crazy," he might have arsenic in his coffee. I guarantee he'd bug out, take a trip to Africa, come back, and go into jam making. Like, I need to get in touch with my jam making roots.
Circa Steve Chappelle.
He refused all that money. What was it, like $30 million?
No, 50 million. 50 billion. What is a billion?
It was a billion, really?
Yeah. No, it's 50. He turned out $50 million to continue doing his show. That's before taxes, of course. So, even if it's 20 after, it's $20 million.
Yeah, he spent a shitload of money and went to Africa, and and then he came back and he went on Oprah and he talked about how the industry was sick and that they were trying to turn black men into females and make them wear dresses and things.
A little bit on Oprah, but I think actually if you want to, the most in-depth interview I've seen on that subject matter when he came back from Africa was actually on the Actors Studio.
Yeah.
That was one of the best interviews I've ever seen, ever.
Yeah.
Any celebrity. So, because Oprah, he didn't really go deep, but like the Actors Studio, he let it all hang out.
Well, he's got a comedy special that he did. You can watch it on YouTube, that he did after the fact. And the idea that I always want to say, Dave, man, you're a comedian. Give me $50 million, I'll run around in a dress. Flip Wilson did it, but so did Jerry Lewis. So does everybody. So does Jim Carrey. Nobody gives a crap. That's how comedians get off the hook. That's how they say, don't take us seriously. I don't believe. Do you believe the story?
Believe what story?
The why he ran away story. See, I think that he was on to stuff. I think that he knows.
No, yeah, I think he's awake. I think something. No, I don't believe the fish.
He was scratching the surface because basically. Professor Griff and some other people in the hip-hop industry have come out and said a similar thing. This is basically like trying to feminize the black male to make them seem less scary, I suppose, or less to be. And I don't know how, I don't know the details of all that, and I can't say that any of them do either. But it's been said by other people as well, and so I think he was just scratching the surface and saying as much as he could without getting, I don't know, or getting poisoned or something.
Getting knocked off. Getting arsenic in his coffee.
Exactly. Saying a little bit, he was kind of just scratching the surface on that is going on, and you can kind of see that. And I don't find that to be just within the, this could be a whole nother truth or a whole nother one, but I don't find it to just be in the industry, in hip-hop or in, I find
music, but it's anywhere where entertainment is,
as well, to just be prevalent in our society, just sort of trying to, gender.
We have this. I was going to say, we have this culture of celebrity worship, and if people follow celebrities, you can just basically get them to say and do what they want, and then people will follow them. So
I find this argument to be a little bit silly because the black community, in as much as it exists, is pretty openly homophobic, and I don't mean hateful. I mean generally phobic. No, we don't want anything to do with that. They're not like hateful rednecks. We'll kill you.
No, well, growing up, I remember it was unacceptable to say another woman was pretty, because if you said that, you're gay and you get your ass kicked.
Wow.
You can't be like, oh, that's a nice dress you have on today. What the fuck? Are you gay? Are you gay? So I wasn't allowed to, say that in school. My parents were open about it. I did it, at home, or if I saw a pretty woman, I was like, oh, she's a pretty woman, or her dress is nice. But I remember being around my friends not being able to say that without. I already got my ass kicked enough, so, I didn't want to add to.
Right. We're doing a show on cancer today, and so how we got into this with talking about
I'm sorry. We do that sometimes here at Truth or Talk, but yes. What was the Gerson Institute like?
Well, I didn't see the clinic. No, I saw the operating center, and I talked to the staff. I didn't talk to the patient. So I don't know if that's bubbly or burst or bubbly, but I got to talk to the working staff and had a nice time at their mostly raw food salad lunch. I took about an hour and a half of their time and they bought a number of books, and I think the general reception to talking about the history of vaccines and HIV testing and that sort of thing was very warmly received and with a great deal of interest. Now, they tend to be very liberal in the sort of like master's degree holding, white liberals. It's a particular way of thinking about the world. And I said, this might offend you, but they had seen enough, I think, in the Gerson world to know that everything they were told wasn't true. And because my talk about HIV and AIDS is actually essentially it's a very libertarian point of view or a very liberal point of view about homosexuality, but a very clinical or critical point of view about destroying your gut, with drugs and toxic products. I think they understood it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad you were able to go out there and check that place out. I've been wanting to see it myself, and I know that they don't see patients there. They actually see patients in Mexico. They have 2 locations not in this country because they're not allowed to actually say that they have a cancer treating clinic, I think is what it is. It's like legally they can't say it because they're not giving them chemo and radiation.
That's insane.
Right.
Yeah.
No, we have an anti-medical establishment in this country, which makes it a scary place to be, because even if you're healthy and you do everything you can, you don't, like the hospital is literally the last place on earth outside of maybe Mogadishu that you want to be. You just don't want to be here. You don't want to be in a hospital here. You don't want to be subject to their whims and their bizarre notions of health, which are always anti-health and insanely pro-pharma. You don't want to be victimized by it. So I really think that we actually have to start a second-tier medical system somehow and just somehow fly under the radar or incorporate it under some different statute that, patients sign something that we know it's going to, we know we sign away all our rights because the doctors here listen to us. So we don't need any legal confirmation. We're not going to sue the United States government. We're not going to sue the pharmaceutical company. We just want to go here. I know that's what Gerson should be able to do, but even in Mexico, they're not allowed to take HIV-positive patients because the Mexican government won't let them. So, my talk to them was, like, hey, maybe you should look into this a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's really scary. I mean, as a parent, too, if I signed a document like that, I would have my kids taken away in a heartbeat. If I sent something that said I don't want to have them treated by pharmaceuticals or taken into this clinic, where they were going to be treated with chemotherapy or whatever. So, that's the other issue on that. If you're a parent and you have kids, if you're an adult, you're on your own, that's one thing. But, I would very much hesitate to take my kids for just about anything to a hospital. They'd really have to eat something, they'd have to be, if they had a broken leg or something like that, but, if it was something that needed long-term treatment, I would go the other direction. So, anyway, just to put that out there. But, yeah, you can't sign papers like that. I could never sign anything. I would have to hire my own lawyer and have to draft it, because I would never sign anything provided to me that said, okay, giving up legal rights for your kids and this and that. No, never.
No, I know, but like if you could have a second-tier hospital system that could somehow exist, that you said, we know we're taking our lives into our hands and we're doing so willingly.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't sign something that said I'm taking my kids' lives into their hands, because then that would assured that they would be removed from.
Yeah, I know.
Because because they're pinning you down as an irresponsible mother, basically.
Because being responsible for yourself is impossible in America, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have this organization of thugs called CPS that will come in that have rights beyond that of a judge. They can come in. Social workers have more power than a judge. They can come in. You don't have a trial. You don't have a jury of your peers. You don't get to plead your case sometimes for months, even years, if ever. And they can just remove it based on whatever. And it's also profitable to them in many ways, especially if you have a sick child, because they get paid more for tending to a sick child. So just that, to say that, there has to be another way, but, I wouldn't sign anything that was provided. If you're in a situation like that, you almost have to call your lawyer before you even call the doctor. Make sure that you have representation right away so that you don't get sued. That's the reality of it, to be honest, guys.
Wow.
So, anyway, we had a show about cancer today. We talked to a bunch of people. We talked to Virstyne's friend Janette, who is working on a project involving hemp. We talked to Bollinger, who was just great. I loved having a conversation with him. And we're closing the show with our friend Liam Scheff, who just went to the Gerson Clinic and gave a talk there. And and it was really interesting. And I wanted to do more about it. We could talk about with Gerson and Brzezinski and all that. So definitely there will be more shows to come on this subject, because it just really is very vast. So, Liam, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Liam. Thanks, Scheff.
Yeah, I got to go get into my dress. It's comedy time.
Easily.
To your dress, and please check out Liam's book. It's on Kindle now and Amazon.com, official story. So very good book.
Wait, you have two more books, right? Geneticals, and what's the other one?
Official Stories poster book, which goes along with Official Stories and helps illustrate the chapters in the book. And the Geneticals, the first vaccine damaged superheroes. That's right. We're taking on the vaccine industry with a little bit of satire and comic book craziness.
There it is.
That's great.
Awesome. So thanks, Liam, and we are out of here, as always, with peace, truth, and love.
Peace, truth, love you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Heard this anywhere else? Tommy Chung of Cheech and Chong fame announces to us that he has cancer. I spoke with Chung earlier this evening. We're going to talk about the legalization of marijuana issue, but then he told me this. The Tommy Chung is here. So, Tommy, good to see you. We brought you in to talk about this New York State, about lessening the laws for possession in public. But you have an announcement to make. What is it?
My announcement is that I was diagnosed with prostate cancer about a month ago. And I'm going to start treating it with cannabis oil or hemp oil or pot oil. And the reason I'm treating it with hemp oil is because I looked at a video just recently called Run from the Cure by Rick Simpson. And it documents a whole how he cured his melanoma cancer by using hemp oil.
You believe that, you think that you got prostate cancer in prison after the paraphernalia and the company, the internet company selling the bongs. This was 2003. You think that you got it in prison? Why?
Yeah, that's my feeling, because I was totally healthy when I went in jail, and I hadn't smoked pot before I went in jail, and then while I was in jail, I was clean as a whistle because they drug tested me almost every day, and I started having problems with my prostate right there. I remember very well, because when you have problems, you have to get up in the middle of the night and you got to pee a lot, and then I also contacted gout while I was in prison from the food, and so I think it's a combination of the food and the fact that the prison itself in Taft, California, is built over a toxic waste dump. And they have a thing there called valley fever that other prisoners were getting, and they don't even know what it was. It's some sort of wasting disease. So I think I got it there, yeah.
We should tell you haven't smoked pot in how long? People think you're a pothead, but you haven't smoked pot in...
No, well, I laid off for about a year you know, when I started getting kind of weird health issues, you know, which actually turned out to be prostate cancer. And so I did everything. I'm a very holistic person. I went on the juices and everything, you know, no red meat and the whole bit. And so, but now that I found out that the hemp oil will help the prostate, hey, I'm back, man.
Do you think people are short-sighted because many people have an issue with it morally? And do you think people are being short-sighted about, especially the, you know, what marijuana can do to you?